Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello and welcome to The Print. I'm Shravasti Dasgupta. We are coming to you from Leh in Ladakh, and joining me is Mr. Sonam Wangchuk, who's an engineer. He's an innovator. He's also an educationist. But today he's here to talk to us about his very interesting Boycott China movement. So welcome, Mr. Wangchuk, to The Print. My first question to you, Mr. Wangchuk, is that you have started this Boycott China movement way before this ghastly attack on our soldiers, where 20 soldiers were killed in Galwan Valley on the intervening night of June 15th and 16th. But you, in fact, started this movement towards the end of May. So if you could give us a little bit of an explain the rationale behind this movement, what made you start it in the first place?
It's an aggression that started in May, but even before this year, I had observed such aggression over many years, for decades actually. Our pastures are lost, and our shepherds find it very difficult to raise their Kashmir Pashmina goats. So I've been observing this for a long time, and this time, before the skirmish, there was a lot of aggression and intrusion on the borders, and I saw that this time it was not just military aggression, it was actually something internal within China, which it was trying to solve with such attention diverting tactics, because there was the same thing happening in South China Sea with 3 countries there. So it couldn't have been just a coincidence. And therefore, I thought that the answer, the response for this should not only be military, but economic through citizens. And therefore, I called for the Boycott China movement wallets rather than or alongside bullets.
Right. So you've also said that the impact of citizen response will in fact have a far greater impact than a military response against China. But some people are also suggesting that that this has in fact created a situation where there's a lot of hatred. In fact, we have seen images of people throwing their TVs from their balconies. They are burning their products that they own. In fact, some people have gone and even vandalized shops that sell Chinese products. I mean, these are humble shopkeepers who are also trying to earn a living. So, so do you think that we have not you've not really imagined the extent that this could go, and this has taken a very violent turn? And what would you say about that, sir?
So I think this happened when there was, deaths in the Galwan Valley. People were overtaken by emotions, and I think this is not the right way of expressing your strategic, movement that I imagine. Such outbursts of emotions does not actually help change China. It actually damages your property and makes you a laughing stock. So that's not the way. What I call for, and I do again, is not to hate China or the Chinese people or their goods even, rather act against a regime that is all about aggression and control of its own 1.4 billion people and its exploitation, and control of the rest of the world if given a chance through their expansionist plans. So it should be about the regime that supports such controlling tactics through trade, and therefore the trade and not the goods. We should be very careful and very clear about what we want. So yeah, this kind of things has happened in the past also, when people break things and burn things in Doklam times. And I don't think this is the right way. It has to be about the regime and not about people nor about things.
Right, right. Sir, also I want to ask you that experts are suggesting that we have a long way to go before we reduce our reliance on China. What would you say about that, sir?
Well, any time you start a journey, it's a small step. It's a small step, but you don't stop the journey because it's too long. Yeah, you start your first step. So it's late, but it is always better than tomorrow. You have to start now, and you have to rebuild your own manufacturing and production, arts and crafts and so on, so that we don't lose everything. At this rate, we'll lose almost every capability of making anything in this country. So today is better than tomorrow, and therefore 60% or whatever, you begin somewhere. You can't say it's so much and I don't begin, and therefore it makes sense to begin anytime.
So, sir, final question that I want to ask you is that perhaps the focus should then be on beating them in making these products that we are reliant on them for rather than boycotting them. Is that how we should go about it, sir?
Both. We definitely should become more efficient and more skilled and more competent and make the best of products that we can. But I don't think we can ever make cheap products like China, because it's not out of nothing that they make cheap products. There's a story behind why Chinese products are cheap, and the story is not very nice. You know, when you violate labor rights, when you violate human rights, when you violate environmental protection of their own land, when you violate, for example, currency manipulations, or subsidize artificially to dump goods to kill the industry in a country, you don't want to do all these things and make cheap products. You understand? So it's like how we consumers with our wallets defeated child labor. Today, nobody buys things that are cheap because of child labor. We say ethically this is not acceptable. We don't buy products associated with cruelty to animals. We say it's beyond our ethics. So here is a country that is producing cheap products, violating all norms. How can you ethically accept to buy those cheap products just for your comfort and convenience and overlook everything that goes behind? So we should boycott until China reforms, until the Chinese regime reforms and gives freedom to its own people. You know, people there are
Right.
kept from information. We talk about why do we boycott TikTok and Chinese apps, but do you know that they have already for a long time banned Google, Twitter, and all the news media? So they would best understand when the world does it to them.
Right.
So that's why I think for such a nation, we should use the language they understand. But at the same time, this is not to say that we don't need to change anything. We should clean our system of corruption, nepotism, and have our government facilitate entrepreneurs. They should not be taken as criminals or something. You know, businessmen are
Right.
looked down upon. We cannot do things where in an environment where business is seen as a dirty thing. So we'll have to support our industries. We'll have to clean up the system. We'll have to build infrastructure, and then produce good and economic, products.
Right, there are very strong words coming in from Mr. Wangchuk over there, proposing very interesting ideas that we have not heard of before. But maybe it's the time that we need to spur on our local entrepreneurs to make so that reliance on foreign products can be reduced in the long run. Thank you so much, Mr. Wangchuk, for joining us on The Print.